And that's pretty much it, I think. Does anyone want to talk about any trades, any pairs before I go? You interested in anything, any setups? You want to ask any questions or anything like that? It's been a long session today, nearly what, 2 hours? Quick question. Yeah, go ahead, Sid. You can turn your mic on if you want. You want to turn your mic on? Right. So, nothing really. It's just in the grand scheme of things when we're looking at the yen, right? So as you know, I'm a buyer of the yen. And it's a good question as well, by the way, Sid, right? Because I think a lot of people, may want to ask this question or maybe thinking about things, right? So this is the way that I would break this down. Yeah. So there are times in the market where you won't get any news relative to the currency that is selling off, right? And when you get something like this happen, right, and you're looking around the market and you're going, well, what's happened for the yen to sell off? Well, if nothing is, if there's no data, there's no news or anything like that, right? It could be carry trade, right? So carry trade basically is just where traders are pretty much selling or borrowing at 0% and looking to put it into a higher yielding currency, right? Like the dollar, like pretty much everything else is above that yen, right? It could be that. So there's no event on the economic calendar, right? Cool. But also as well, just from a valuation perspective, just from looking at this from value, yeah, we know that this, in terms of this low here, is the absolute bargain for the yen, right? We know this because when we zoom out, basically, we've seen prices, bounce off of that and create, some new highs, right? Now, markets typically move in ranges or auctions, yeah? And also as well, remember that we as retail traders, yeah, the market doesn't move on our time. It's a nice it's a business model. It's a relationship between market makers and institutional flows, right? And so ultimately, if I've just seen that the yen is a bargain down here, yeah, brilliant, excellent. I know that the yen is potentially cheap, yeah. Now I may have missed out on this cheap price and I want to do business down here. And so this is obviously considered expensive. Oh, sorry, man, I just totally messed that up, butchered that. I'll just put EXP. Now, this is expensive, right? Or premiums and discounts, right? So in the grand scheme of things, when we're looking at the yen, I'm not necessarily worried about the recent price action as an institutional trader and anyone who wants to buy the yen. If I have a fundamental idea to buy the yen, I'm not necessarily focused on the yen being weak today. I might be focused on it because, let's say, for example, I've gone long on a, or short. I say a long. I've gone long on a yen trade, for example. Yeah, where I'm buying the yen against, for example, the I don't know the euro, for example, right? Now, I would worry about this trade if my stop loss, for example, was above here. Right? If my stop loss was here, somewhere there, then I'd probably be panicking, right? I'd be like, oh my days, it's going to stop me out. It's going to stop me out. But when it comes to value, yeah, when it comes to value, I'm not worried because ultimately I really should be buying the yen around here anyway, right? If I've got a long term or medium term or even a short term view, but usually a medium to long term view on the valuation of the yen because that's cheap. Yeah. So, in terms of what's happening today on the yen, who knows, right? Who really knows? I mean, I have no idea. But if I'm taking the view that I want to be a buyer of the yen in and around a cheap area, then in fact, I want prices to... One sec, let me just stop the video. Yeah. I want prices to come down here so that I can be a buyer. So, yeah. And this is the reason why I guess I'm always, trying to emphasize to traders, first of all, zoom out. First thing to do is zoom out. Right? Look at where you are on like a daily time frame chart. And then you can put it into kind of like into context as to where you want to look to buy or sell. So ultimately, this is likely to be the auction, right? Where are we now? Right. So low to high, and we're coming back. So now we're at fair value for the yen. And ultimately, you do want to trade in and around some sort of demand zone, which is going to kind of start from there. But taking into consideration other technical factors, like, for example, you've got support there. You've got, I guess, a little bit of resistance and support somewhere there as well. But ultimately, you're looking for a trade at levels where other traders have done business in the past. And also as well, you're looking for some sort of discount. So I think the best time to look for now a yen trade would be if it comes down to here, down to here. So I personally don't necessarily worry about too much about, if we see like an unfair auction, for example, which is basically what's happening, I guess, now, where you're getting that unfair move. Yeah. But it's an unfair move down into a nice zone in the same way that this was unfair, right? You can see that level there, or that move there, was unfair. And maybe it's just coming down to complete that unfair auction, which would be right at a level which is there. Also, you've got another unfair auction, which is somewhere here, which could also be completed. So you could see prices actually come all the way down here, complete these unfair auctions, and then look to just buy the yen at the absolute bargain price in preparation for rate hikes. I know it's a bit messy. Looks very messy, but you get the point, hopefully. Yeah. Oh, you saw the carry trade switch. Yeah. I went over that as well, the carry trade switch. So that hopefully should, again, it says should support the yen, but ultimately, I do think that price is, tends to get a lot of traders, thinking what's happening is something, and it's natural and it's normal to think that, right? But after we do our investigation and we think to ourselves, well, there's no economic, calendar. There's nothing on the horizon. Nothing saying that this is, this is the cause of this move. It's just the markets are very illiquid, and these things tend to happen. But I don't get worried about it. I just look to take the trade and think to myself that that is actually now, a potential bargain. In fact, this could actually end up turning into a stop hunt trade, stop hunt level, somewhere around there. And if you find that this does do some sort of stop hunt, something like that, and you want to be a buyer of the yen based off of the yen index stop hunting, and then you buy something like, I don't know, the euro yen, for example. But remember as well, on this, you have to kind of see, if you really want to be a buyer of the yen, I would say at least if it can come down into this extreme, so go beyond the RSI, then you start to look for a buy trade. I think that for me would be the ultimate confluence. That's when I would start to look to establish a new position on the yen. That's when I'm looking to buy the yen. And so, and then you want to see if you're looking at, for example, I don't know, the euro, for example, the euro is heading up into an expensive area. Brilliant. So then if it gets to that expensive area, then you start to look for that sets up now for a nice trade on the euro yen. So if you missed this move here, as far as the move to the downside, now you're getting another opportunity to get involved in this potentially before it rolls over. And again, remember that institutions need time to position themselves and get involved. And this is why this is known as a fair auction. This is why ranges are known as fair auctions, because what's happening is that within the sideways movement, it allows the facilitation for business to be done before prices end up going, of course, either higher or lower, depending on the fundamentals, right? That's, you know what, that's what typically happens. That's what can happen. There are obviously times where you do get moves. So you can see something like this. So if we're looking at auctions, you can see there's an auction, there's an auction, there's an auction, there's an auction. You can start to see now that's starting to become the beginning of an auction. I shall probably say there. And that's starting to begin. Even get one slightly here to the upside there. Start to see it all over the place now. Auctions everywhere. Some bigger than others. Some auctions within auctions. So you can see that one there as well. Right. You can see that auction there to there. Yeah, where you got level there, multiple touches. So again, some on the small side, some on the big side. But when you start to break it down, go back. I won't go back too much. I've got a lead. I've got to go as well. You get stop hunts as well. That kind of distorts it. But ultimately, when you're looking and you start to see this stuff all over the place, right? You start to see where prices tend to auction from there, there, smaller auction there, bigger auction there, right? So this allows institutions to do business. Right? While everyone's focused on trends, and I'm not saying that trends are a bad thing and trends versus thingy, but if you think in terms of like auctions and where business is to be done, this being either it's going to be expensive for the euro or cheap for the yen, right? It's going to be a bargain for the yen, or that's going to be cheap for the euro, and that's going to be a bargain for the yen, or sorry, expensive for the yen. But if we look at where ultimately prices and now auction in between, if it comes up to here, to me, that's gives me another chance to get in. Because this is businesses do, you know, institutions do business over days and weeks and sometimes even months. That's why you get sometimes like a move like this where prices are within that auction, nice stop hunt below there. And that lasted what? That was from 91 trading days between that low to that high before it ended up breaking out and creating another auction. Same thing here, here. So they can last weeks. So if ultimately, when we think about it, yeah, imagine we know the backdrop is the euro are looking to do what? Cut rates. Yeah. And at worst, the yen, the Bank of Japan looking to hold rates. Let's say they hold rates for the rest of the year. Let's just say that happens. We've got one central bank that's cutting rates, one that is holding. That should still, worst case scenario, still cause the euro yen to go to the downside. It could even stop hunt, right? It could even go slightly higher. But overall, once the euro are on their cutting cycle, that is what should happen. So yeah, we just maybe just pulled back to a supply zone, which is here as well. Supply, beginning of that supply. We're in fair value at the moment now between that low and that high. So yeah, like I said, anyone who missed out on a sell around here now gets a second chance. And that's really it. Right, guys. Any other questions? Any other questions? Welcome, Ruby Ron.